If you really want it, you've got to do the hard stuff. Failure was not an option.
Do you think your drive came from being a mother? Like, where did that come from? Just give us a sort of a picture of what's possible in this industry.
It is not good enough to be good at something. You must be able to market and sell. No one really believed in what I was doing.
That's why we started this podcast, to be honest.
We're going to start off with a little slate and we'll go right into it.
Hey creators, it's your hosts, Natalie and Yasmin, and you're listening to the Course Creation Podcast. We'll talk business, building digital empires, and how to create passive income to start living a life you love. We are here to empower those of you who are thinking of starting your own course and to support those who are already well on their way to success. We've built a 7-figure media agency on unique storytelling, and now we're here to share our story in the course creation world, and more importantly, to hear yours. We are committed to creating a space for learning and a space for diversity and inclusion. Now let's get the show started. 3, 2, 1, action.
Hello, everybody. We're so excited to have Jane Copeland on the podcast today. Jane Copeland is the ultimate girl boss. She's an incredibly accomplished digital marketing pro. She has an awesome online business school called the Business Made Beautiful Academy, geared towards modern women. She's a publisher of an award-winning business blog called Coping with Jane. She's an author of a book called Boardroom to Baby and the founder of the program Next Top Coach. Wow, Jane, we are so honored to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
And wow, what a welcome. Thank you so much for that warm introduction.
Awesome, Jane. So our listeners are from all walks of life, I should say, or different stages of life and career. And I think your story will particularly resonate with our female audience because from what I understand, you started your entrepreneurial journey when you became pregnant with your first child, if I'm correct. And
yes, I did.
and being a mom is a huge responsibility and undertaking. So I feel you are a true inspiration to many and that anything is truly possible. So take us back to where it all started.
Yeah, well, like you just said, I guess I was pregnant with my son, and I knew that I had a window of opportunity when I was on maternity leave to throw caution to the wind, I guess, and to start a business. I guess I've always wanted to start a business, and being on maternity leave, it gave me that that opportunity to pursue something else outside of my career. But actually what happened was I got really, really sick with an autoimmune disease, right? It was called Graves' disease, and it actually ended up going to one of my eyelids, and it disfigured my face for a year and things like that. So as well as being pregnant, I also had this other second motivation in that I'd just been through this massive shift in my life of being ill, where I had to literally it changed my lens on life, and I had to kind of reinvent myself and, what I wanted to do in this world. So that's what I did. When I was on maternity leave, I decided, right, I'm going to start this business, but I didn't know what business to start. So I used to spend days on end Googling what business should I start, what are the best businesses for women, things like that. And this was like 9 years ago. So the online marketing or the online program space and female entrepreneurship wasn't big like it is now. So anyway, long story short, I couldn't decide on a business, so I decided to play to my strength, which was writing and marketing, and I started a blog. So I started a blog, and on that blog, I kind of went all in with investing in the actual blog. It's the one that's around today at copingwithjane.com. And on there, originally when I started, it was to talk about women's issues and, and becoming a mum and all those different things. So literally my business started from there. I mean, the long and short of it is that people started asking me how to start a blog. So I became a blog coach, and I was called the Fairy Blog Mother. And then I created a program in how to blog, and then it just took off from there.
That's amazing. How long would you say it took for it to sort of take off?
Yeah. So people ask me this often, and also they want to know how much money I spent, which I think is really interesting. So I'm going to answer that as well. So I basically had spent about probably $25,000 to $30,000 before I actually started making money, but it was probably maybe about 18 months. Yeah, it was about 18 months. Like, I have to say that during that time, I also wrote a book. So in Australia, I was in the media a lot, and from the outside, it looked like I was doing exceptionally well financially. I was doing store openings, and I had this big blog, and I had a lot of Australian celebrities on the blog, and it looked huge. But actually, in terms of monetizing, I didn't really monetize that well until I started doing online programs and coaching. So yeah, realistically, it was about 18 months. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I think that, that's what this podcast is all about, is creating online programs and courses, and then, funneling them somehow and marketing them somehow, and eventually the end goal is to sell them. So it's so interesting that you say that this is how it looked on the outside, but it wasn't until you actually created a program that you saw success. And so that was 9 years ago. What would your advice be to somebody who's starting out today? Is a blog the way to go, or have things shifted and changed?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Like, back in the day when I started, Facebook ads were really, really cheap. And not just that, the market was like, there were hardly any players in there. It was so much easier when I started. And now, everyone is online. The market is a lot more mature. It's saturated. But also, there's more demand for online programs as well. So, if I was starting out, I guess I would say that really you've got to be selling something that people want. That's really important. So yeah, you need to think really thoroughly about what your program is going to be on, right? Is there going to be a market for it? The other thing that's really important is that I have always sold my programs first before creating them, for every single program. So I'm sure you might probably heard that before, but other entrepreneurs doing that. It's just so important. So I did that naturally. I've always done that naturally, but most people that I work with, they do it the other way. They'll spend a lot of time creating the content for their program, and then give the marketing and the selling of it a thought after the fact. It really needs to be the other way around. So that is my biggest advice, is market and sell it first before actually creating the program itself.
Wow, that's so amazing advice. Can you actually be a little bit more specific? Like, give us an example. What do you mean by market it before you even make it? Like, is it like you put out a survey or like?
Yes, absolutely. So really, because we don't ever know if anything's going to sell until we sell it, right? So you really want to do that minimum viable product. And the best way that you can do that is by getting something out there as fast as possible. So what I mean is, like, you will do whatever marketing looks like for you. So for some people that might be, launching it within a Facebook group. For other people, say like me, if I do a bigger launch, I might run, I might do the sales page, the email sequence, run ads for that whole campaign without actually having created the content for the program other than the first week or two. So you can have the idea of what you're going to cover in your program and have it all mapped out. But what I mean is, like, you probably know yourself, it takes so long to actually create the content within any program, and it also takes so much longer than you think. So I would say do the full marketing campaign and launch it before actually, creating the full content, because you only need to be 1 week ahead of the students, right, in terms of your content in order to make that work. So I know that with my best students over the years, that's exactly what they've done, just that. Because if they don't, then it can take so long to get it out there. And And not just that, but you don't know if it's going to sell. And often you need to kind of have that launch to know if it's going to sell, obviously, but like what people want. You learn so much from launching or trying to sell something. And also in terms of like the quality of your actual program, it's really not until you get it in the hands of your ideal audience, your consumer, that you're going to be able to improve it. So something that I get all the time is that, I want it to be perfect. I want it to be, this level of quality. That's fine, and I agree, but the thing is that it's always going to be changing. Often people will do their first iteration of the course and then they'll upgrade it in little ways. So yeah.
There are a lot of things that I'm getting at what you're saying, and it's so fascinating and it's so interesting because I think there's a couple of things. First of all, it really reminds me of going back into like crowdfunding and sort of having campaigns like Indiegogo campaigns and whatnot, where somebody has an idea, a service, a product, and they engage with an audience before they even go into market. So that's a really interesting strategy. I think from another perspective, and I absolutely agree, like you need to make sure that your product is something that your audience wants and there's a market for it. I think one thing that I think we're doing right now is we've created the course and we're trying to build a community now. So it's actually, we're doing the reverse of what you mentioned. But how do you know that when you're building your loyalty, when you're building that engagement, that you're not going to, for example, take too long to get that product out, that you're going to lose that interest from the audience that you're building in a sense?
Well, it's exactly like what you're doing now yourself. You're creating interesting content to keep your audience engaged and motivated, and also, so they get to know, like, and trust you before you launch your program. So, it's doing exactly what you're doing, but it's also not taking too long with your program to launch it, right? You've got to strike while the iron is hot. Like with doing a podcast like what you're doing and other things and building up a following organically, which is great. And that's what most people are going to do. The other side of the coin is that you could, pay for an acceleration in fans by doing paid advertising, So, and that's something that I've kind of used with my business, as opposed to building an organic following. So, and the reason why I did that is just because I had the means to do it, right? So I had the means to spend money on Facebook ads. But most people who are starting out or even if they're not starting out, they're not going to have the budget to spend on, say, Facebook ads and things like that. So, yeah.
How much time would you say is too much time? Like if you actually had to put it into a measure, like if you are starting to advertise and market your course, how many weeks, days, months after that should you launch?
Oh, okay, great. So it depends on what your actual launch strategy is. So for example, you can do a live launch, okay, where, the program is launched at a particular date and everyone joins at a particular date. The other model, which is something that I use, is the Evergreen model, right? So people come in all the time, but for them, it's like an open and close. It's still got an open and close date. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah,
I've heard of the Evergreen model myself, but for those of us listening who don't know what that is, can you give us a little definition of what?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you do, it's basically a process that results in a person being able to make sales all the time, consistently, month after month, instead of making money all at one time when they do what's called a live launch. So to do the Evergreen launch, it involves a little bit of tech in order to set up what we call an automated sales funnel. Okay, so it means that a person enters your marketing funnel, right? And they are taken through a process that might be a series of ads, it might be a series of emails, but where they've got a certain period of time to buy your program, right, or whatever it is you're selling. Okay, and for that person, the opportunity really does go away. So the doors do close for that person, right? So once they get in the funnel, they've got a certain amount of days to buy, and then that's it. So that's the model that I tend to use most, as opposed to doing a live launch. And the reason I do that is because I'm selling multiple different things at the same time, right? And also I've been doing this for 9 years now. So when I first started out, I certainly wasn't doing that particular model. So the advantage of doing the Evergreen model just is that you can sell all the time, and it's all automated. It does require tech, like I was saying before. But when you're doing the live launch, right, and you just said, well, how long is too long? It's such a good question, because people do all different, they do it different ways. So I personally only like to sell over a 2-week period, and also I found that the price point that you're selling at is also determines how long you sell it for. So say like if I'm selling like a $6,000 program, then my launch will go for longer than that. It might go for say a month. But if I'm doing a shorter program, it might just go for 1 or 2 weeks, doing a launch. And like these days, people launch things in different ways. Something that's working really well right now is doing a launch by a challenge, okay? And so what that means is that there'll be like a challenge, like a 5-day or a 3-day or a 2-week challenge in learning some skill set. And then usually the person would have a pop-up Facebook group to run that challenge. And then at the end of it, they open up the doors for their program. And then from that point, the launch might go for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Yeah. So there's so many different ways to launch.
So for the Evergreen model, if we were just starting out, what are some of the basic or initial tools that we would have to take a look at, and what platforms are you using?
Yeah, good question. So an email provider, so something like a MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or a Drip, one of those things. And you'll need a sales page as well. And there's so many different platforms, from Kartra to ClickFunnels. I actually use Lead Pages myself. You'll need like some kind of order form, something to take payments with. Ideally, you'll be running Facebook ads, okay? Because when you're kind of pushing the person through a marketing funnel and an email sequence that's automated, then ideally you'll be showing them ads at the same time when they're going through the funnel. So yeah, ideally Facebook ads, and along with that if you're going to run Facebook ads yourself, which is totally fine, you just need to make sure that you know how to run the retargeting ads. There's also another tool that is essential for doing the Evergreen model, and it's called Deadline Funnel. So what that is, it's this piece of technology that you put on your sales page and also in your emails that gives you or allows you to count down, like gives you the countdown timer. So you've probably seen in emails the countdown timer. So what that does, it's a very real thing. At the end of the countdown, it literally stops that person from having access to that sales page anymore. So yeah, so it's kind of like a little piece of technology which allows you to automate that sales funnel and gives every person an individual sales funnel to go through to buy that program. Sorry if that sounds a bit techy.
No, that sounds great. That's really great insight. And I know this is not something, you create a course, it takes a lot of work, and this is not like an overnight success. But in terms of sort of based on your experience working with your clients and yourself being in this space, what's that sort of that threshold of, okay, what we're doing, all of our efforts are actually, paying off? What should we be looking at in the first week or the second week? Let's say if we do set everything up properly and we've got our ads running and all the good stuff in the funnel, what's sort of the range of time where we should see this actually working?
Yeah, like when you're doing anything like this, typically sales come in the last 2 days. It's really interesting. Yeah. Is that what you meant?
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like
Yeah.
when do when should you expect to see results, sales coming in, engagement obviously with building a community, because of course people who are interested are going to be following you and joining your community as well online.
Yeah, because I also think
Yeah.
it's like when you launch, you sort of expect the sales to happen right away, and it's a lot of the times crickets. So
Yeah. So basically, that is exactly right. Most of the sales come in the last, yeah, couple of days. And also, when you're doing a launch, you kind of want to keep a few things up your sleeve. Like if you've got extra bonuses or payment plans or things like that, they're things that you don't need to launch with them. You can kind of drip them out throughout the launch campaign, and that works really effectively as well. So, for example, I once did a launch. I think it was only for $1,000 program, and it wasn't really selling that well. And then the moment I released a payment plan, all the sales dropped. Like they just all came in. And that was literally in the last 2 days. So that's a little hack that you can do, which tends to work well as well.
so interesting. I feel like a lot of the people who get into course creation world or selling programs online get a little bit put off by the evergreen model because the idea of shutting the doors and closing the doors and not allowing any sales to come through feels awkward, right? Like it doesn't feel natural. Why is that actually effective?
Yes. People will only buy if they have a reason to. So if you leave things that are or have things that are available all the time, say sitting on your website or something like that, it would be extremely rare for it to sell. People need to go through some kind of a marketing funnel to help them justify their purchase, right? So, and they need to, even you might have something that's amazing, but it's all about value. So when people purchase, it's like a value. It's a transaction of value. So that person needs to see that they're getting enormous value for what they need to give up in order to get it. And it's not just money that person's giving up; it's time. It's a lot of other things. So yeah, so it's absolutely essential that you do have a time limit on when the program is available. Like it seems like having something available all the time would mean that more sales will come. It's not. It is the exact opposite, right? So yeah, because people think, oh, I don't need to buy that now. I might buy it tomorrow or the next day or next week when I've got more money, or when this happens, when I'm less busy. And then some day becomes never.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. Can you share with us some of your successes and some of the successes of your students? Because I feel like the people listening don't really understand the capacity of this industry. They've estimated that the course creation world or the online education world could potentially come to around 350 billion by 2025, and that was an estimation that was made pre-COVID. So I can't imagine what it would be after COVID. Can you just give us a sort of a picture of what's possible in this industry?
Yeah, well, I guess in my own case, I've been working and built a multi-million-dollar business, and which has allowed me to go into other areas. Like I'm also a property developer, an investor in other companies, things like that. I'm a single mom. So it's like, even in my own experience, like being able to sell online programs and also doing coaching with that has been, it's been amazing for me. And also I see the same thing replicated with many of my students across multiple industries. So yeah, it's just, there are so many different stories in around that, around women in particular, because that's who I mainly work with, just being able to build the lifestyle and business of their dreams from selling online courses. But in saying that, I have to say that as wonderful as it sounds, and yes, this industry has been great to me, it is getting harder and harder to actually be able to sell a program. There is a lot of tech involved, and the tech is what stops a lot of people, right? So yeah, again, like I was saying, a lot of people think that it's just about creating a program. No, like why I've been able to be successful is that I'm really good at marketing and selling. In my other career before this one, I was in sales, right? So I've always been good at selling. And what tends to happen is that your people are attracted towards wanting to build a program because they're good at something, which is amazing, right? And it's so true. But it is not good enough to be good at something. You must be able to market and sell, you know what I mean? So yeah, so over the years, the people who I have worked with who have been able to succeed have all discovered that it's not so much about their program, believe it or not, it's about how good a marketer they are actually. And along with that, the positioning and the copy they write and things like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you think that there's still a lot of opportunity in this market, or do you think it's really saturated with too many courses and too much content out there?
No, I think it's, look, you know, it is a very saturated market, but I still think there's a lot of demand. What is going to, I guess it all comes down to the problem that your course is solving. So the bigger the problem, the more traction and interest there's going to be in that program. So it all comes down to that. There really has to be a need for what you are selling, for the program that you're selling, and also like positioning goes into it. And if you are selling a program, digital marketing is like you'll need digital marketing or building a community, and a lot of that comes down to copy and also like content, right? Copy and content. So yeah, you've got to be good at those things as well. So I'm not out there all the time sharing that much content, but what I am doing is I'm good with marketing funnels. So you've got to kind of nail one of these things, either audience building through amazing content and whatever that means to you, whether it's videos, whether it's podcasts, something like that, or you've got to get good with your marketing funnels, which is kind of what I did. I mean, ideally, a person would do both of those things, but yeah.
I think we've covered a lot about the marketing. I think for their journey of, being there to potentially be a voice, to be there and available for them so that they can contact you. What are some of those other elements that we should be looking after?
Okay, I think you mean once they've purchased the program and going through the content. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's exactly it.
Okay, yeah. So one thing that I've really discovered over the years that's made a really big difference is that there really needs to be a very, very, very clear and strong onboarding process into the program. And that's just it can be a deal breaker, it can be a game changer, things like that. So in my programs, what I always have is an orientation video where I will tell that person how to show up. Say if the program includes mentoring, I share with them what their role is, what my role is, and I also cover off a lot of the questions that they might be having, right, in their mind at that point. The other thing is then I will answer those questions again as part of the onboarding. So what I've found is that by being really clear as part of that onboarding process, students are all on the same page when they start and they all have the same experience, and also they don't nearly ask as many questions about, when's the content coming, how is this delivered, all that sort of thing. So yeah. And again, of course, all of this stuff can be automated, right? So the onboarding process can be automated. And so you do it once and then it's done for good.
So let's move on a little bit. I kind of wanted to know your thoughts on when you're creating content. You sort of mentioned that you do a lot of your things through copy. A lot of the experts that we've been talking to, they keep saying that, you need to bring that human component. You need to go on camera. You need to speak directly to your students. You need to speak directly to your audience. How important do you think that is, or do you think that it can be totally accomplished through copy?
That's such a good question. I can think it can be accomplished through copy if you are an extremely good copywriter, which most people are never going to be. So really the answer is no, because yeah, most people are definitely going to need to get on camera. I mean, these days, video, using video to connect and to show thought leadership is paramount. It's just, goes without question, absolutely. For obvious reasons, people can get to know, like, and trust you. It's so important. Yeah.
Thank you. You kind of affirmed my hunch, but it was good to hear you say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So part of putting yourself out there and, exposing yourself to an audience or to students, you start sort of dealing with this imposter syndrome. I know for us, as we're creating Video Editing 101 on Adobe Premiere, when we look out there in the sea of what's available, it's overwhelming. There are so many video editing courses out there. What are your suggestions in trying to deal with imposter syndrome? I know for me, I try to remind myself that there's someone who's going to want to hear my voice and my take on it. But at the same time, it can be really overwhelming seeing everything that's available out there.
Yeah, no, it really can. And you can start to go round and round and round this creative cul-de-sac, and you're talking negatively to yourself as well and things like that. Look, what I like to do and how I've been able to overcome it myself is that I give myself a schedule, and I'm really good at planning, right, with my business, not with other things in my life. But so I will give myself a deadline. So in your case, it might be, to get this program done or whatever. And then even if the negative talk starts entering my mind, then I just stick to the process. So a lot of what I do, I'm not attached to the result. I'm attached to the process. So I will be consistently do the work over a period of time in order to do it. So I guess I just go ahead and do it regardless of what I might be thinking. You know what I mean? So I think that clarity comes from action, and like, you've just got to do it. You just got to get out there and do it, right? It's like, so even if it's normal to think that you're going to feel nervous about putting yourself out there. Absolutely everyone does, especially women, and you've just got to do it. And that's why it can also help if you're, in your case, there's the two of you, but other people might have a coach they're working with, or a community where they're all going through the same thing, they're all in it together, that sort of thing. But it really is a matter of just doing it, because we all feel it. But you've got to do it. So it really is a case of, you can't sell a secret, and that you really you've got to do the work. You've got to put yourself out there, because otherwise you're just not going to be able to make sales and to actually have a business. So yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you really want it, you've got to do the hard stuff, and it becomes so much easier. It just becomes so much easier. The minute you start doing it, it just becomes easier. The hard part is the thinking about it in your head. When you actually do it, it's fine.
I love that so much, because it resonates so much with everything that we're doing right now. And you're right, the accountability piece is really, really big. So it's really nice that Natalie and I have each other to lean on, and we motivate each other. And some days I might have my down days, or she might have her down days, but we get back on the process, and we just, we'll have our to-do list, and we get organized, and we tackle things. So I know you have a bunch of productivity hacks. I know you've mentioned some of them on your blog as well. It's working with a team, having great conversation, talking about things, having like operating procedures, the automation part of things, task organization. If you don't mind just expanding on some of these just productivity hacks, and if there's any tools that you would recommend that really help on the day-to-day.
Yeah. So I really, although my whole business is automated, I really do, it's not a difficult or complex thing. Like, I still use I don't use Asana. I don't use any of those project management tools anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. So I just use Google Docs across my business for everything, right? But one thing that has really helped is that I try and not have to do things more than once. So if I'm doing something, I will try to write it down, create a process around it, and automate it, whatever that is. So it might be a process of maybe, onboarding a client into the program, or I will then create an onboarding email sequence around it, upload it into my assistant will upload it into, say, a MailChimp, and then that process is done. So we spend time setting up stuff so that we can automate it, which ultimately saves time in the end. The other thing I do is that if we're ever doing any new type of using any kind of new tool, whether it's a different type of landing page software, or say if we're using Loom, the screen recording software for the first time, we will always, in my team, I only got 2 people on my team, or 1 at the moment, we will always record how to do that task. So, and then keep it on a document, a master document, so that whoever comes into the business, or if we ever have to do that function again, there's training on how to do it. So that's something that I use all the time. Like, for example, with my membership site, my assistant has gone and recorded training on how to do every single function in there, so that if she's on holidays and I need to do it myself, then I can just watch the training on it. So that's the other thing. I mean, over the years, I've used Trello, I've used Asana, I've used Slack. So I've used all those things, but I found that actually I didn't need those things. We just operate with Google Docs, but we do use Zapier a lot. So Zapier, we use it to connect various things to other parts of my business. For example, if someone books a call with me, I think we've connected Zapier, or we use Zapier to connect on, so that that person receives a bunch of, onboarding emails for that call, things like that.
Do you have someone on your team, or is it yourself, in terms of providing support to your people who are actually taking your programs? That can become overwhelming when you have thousands of people subscribing. How do you manage that and maintain that?
Yeah, so it used to be quite difficult. Now it's no longer difficult, because I have that really robust onboarding process, so that it's all automated. And because I've been doing it for a while, every kind of question or issue that a person could have, we've already thought about it, and we're getting in front of them. We're kind of ahead of the curve with it. So again, it's that beautiful, tight onboarding process that's automated. That's how we do it. And then also, I've only got a really small team. I've got a Facebook ads person, myself, and my assistant, who isn't even full-time. But I do bring people on for projects. But essentially, if we get a customer service query, then my assistant will answer it. So it's all very easy, actually. Yeah. And then also, even in the Facebook groups for the programs that I have, like, everyone knows how to show up, and it all works really easily.
Speaking of Facebook groups, we were recently advised that Facebook groups is the next big thing, over potentially even creating an email list. What are your thoughts on that? How important is a Facebook group?
Yeah, agree 100%. It is 100%. Yeah, it's no longer enough just to have an email list. You must have a Facebook group 100%. Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it so important?
Just because, like with email open rates aren't as high. Facebook groups allow you to create kind of like a vessel of people who know, like, and trust you, or a container, I should say. They're great for community building, and like when you post in there, they get a notification that you've posted in the group. It's just so good for awareness. And basically, like it's just that if you post something, people are going to see it. Whereas if you're emailing someone, they're not. Also, of course, you can do video, they can see you. Yeah.
What's the best way outside of ads, obviously, to get people to join your Facebook group?
Um, well, you can do it through an email list. You can do it through, there's a whole detailed strategy around how to do that. So too much for this conversation, but yeah, there's kind of a whole strategy around that. But yeah, you can post in other people's groups. Eventually, you can run competitions in the group to get other members to get people to join your group. There's lots of different things you can do.
So since you are the marketing queen, if you had to say what are the top 3 things that you need to have in your Facebook ads, what would those be?
It depends what the ad is for, right? So yeah, but let's just say, generally speaking, an ad that is what we call a pattern interrupt. So the ad creative needs to be good, whether that's a graphic, whether that's a video, whatever it is, it needs to be very strong. The copy needs to be amazing as well. Right now, kind of long form, medium length copy is working well. The page that it's going to needs to be relevant and optimized. Yeah.
That's good. That's great. That's all very tangible advice. I like that. I want to take it a little personal now, if you don't mind. So I'm a mom myself. I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I also found that my maternity leave, when I was on maternity leave, it was a very creative time. It was kind of like you sort of start thinking about not only the future for your child, but the future for yourself and what that looks like, and all of these possibilities are open. So I can definitely relate to you on that. And it's so amazing that you started your business at that time. My next question is how did you juggle it all? Because I know for myself, thank God I can afford to send my child to daycare, but there are a lot of moms out there who can't. Yeah. How are you able to balance it, juggle it, do it all?
Yeah, that's such an important question. Look, the truth is I did have a lot of support. So I'm not going to lie about that. So my partner at the time was there a lot. He had flexible working things. I also had family close by. So yeah, I had a lot of support. But I've got to say, it was no one, while I had support, no one really believed in what I was doing. So I just had to kind of and everyone had a problem with it, why wasn't I spending more time with my son and yada, yada, yada. I just basically didn't listen to them and was so focused and driven. And I really acted like failure was not an option. So I just did it. I had so much drive and ambition. Right. So, and also I remember when I was writing my book, I used to get up at 4 a.m. and write from 4 to 7 every single day. So I made it happen. You just find a way, essentially. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Do you think your drive came from being a mother? Where did that come from?
I've always been driven in my career, but I think I just knew that it was now or never, and that if I didn't make this work, I would never have another opportunity. And I just felt like I like material things. I also wanted to make an impact in this world. So I just thought, yeah, I need to do this, and I just had such drive. And yeah, and I had goals in my life, house goals and stuff like that. And I knew I needed money for that. So not that I was motivated by money as such, but yeah, I realized early on that at the end of the day, it is about making sales, isn't it? So yeah.
It absolutely is. But congratulations. You set out, you put out a goal and you did it. So that's amazing and it's so inspiring. And I, as a fellow mom, I have to say, you've done it and it's so inspiring. And I hope to be on the other end of that one day as well. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. So before we wrap it up, we always sort of say, if you could drop one last wisdom bomb for our listeners. And a lot of our listeners are people who are just starting out. They have no network, they have no community, they don't have any courses ready, but they don't know where to start. If you had to drop one last wisdom bomb for them, what would it be?
I would say, and it's kind of along with what we were just saying, is that really you can master absolutely anything. I have been able to succeed in this business completely by myself. I didn't have a tech husband. I was so non-techie. I was the person who, if in my job, if the paper got stuck in the printer, I would phone the help desk. So, where there's a will, there's a way. You can master anything. Now I'm so good with the tech. I've taught myself everything. And it does just come from being determined. And if you want it badly enough, you will be able to achieve it. All the tools are there. You just don't give up, essentially. So yeah, that would be it.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. Your energy is just super contagious, and it's just so amazing to hear your perspective and to just have that positive sort of insight and outlook that anything is achievable, and literally you can be a self-starter, a self-learner, and don't be afraid to pursue your dreams is essentially the key to success. And you are the secret weapon behind hundreds of successful online businesses out there. So where can people find you?
Oh, okay. So you can go to copingwithjane.com or nexttopcoach.com or businessmadebeautiful.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, and we would love to have you again. And it's just, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, we might be knocking on the door for more advice and more of Jane's top secrets. So it's really fantastic. We really, really appreciate your time.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Have the most lovely day. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Course Creation Podcast. Thank you for tuning in and being a champion of ours. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and find us on Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. We really want to hear from you. And we're going to be digging through reviews for our next guest to feature. So if you're interested in being a guest, then you know what to do. Also, join our private Facebook community called the Course Creation Crew to connect with other course creators. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at coursecreation.com. That is all. We appreciate you all so much and look forward to having you here next time.